Welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Mariane Pinkston. Join Dr. Pinkston today as she teaches you how an integrative approach to health, combining holistic and contemporary medical information, can lead you to the better life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Mariane Pinkston.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. I am Dr. Mariane Pinkston, and I have had a guest with me for a couple of shows now, and this will be our third, I think, and that is Mr. Sinclair, who works out at Warm Springs and does some fun stuff out there, but is also running for Congress now, so got a busy plate, and we've always been glad to have him on because we get to talk about some topics I think that are a little bit more politically driven and shaping medicine and things today. So we're going to do that again. Welcome. I'm glad to have you back again.
Thank you for having me back. Absolutely. Glad to be back.
Welcome in. So I know you've been busy lately, and I've been to a couple events and things, watching you and having a good time. How's everything going for you?
It's tiring, but I wouldn't ask for any other way. I truly enjoy getting to meet great people, talking about tough subjects, and when you put yourself out there running for Congress or any type of elected position, and it's tiring, but again, you get to be able to talk to people and realize these are tough situations. So a lot of the stuff I share and talk about are stuff I'm dealing with, my family's dealing with, my neighbors are dealing with, you're dealing with, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And that's why I love having you on too, because that's something very down to earth. You've been in the medical field for a long time.
Yeah,
how many years?
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20
so
years.
I was a medical service corps officer for the Army National Guard. I have a bachelor's and master's in health administration, and I've spent some time in acute and post-acute healthcare. So right about 20 years.
That's about the same amount of time I've been in too. So we're getting old, I think. Just say 20 years. That's like a mark where you gain a lot of respect, I think, about what you're doing, and so good. Well, I know there are probably about 1,000 topics that we could land on. I think something that's kind of near and dear to my heart lately. Now that we're getting past COVID and everything a little bit, but is mental health, and something in Texas that I think is very in need of attention, and hopefully we can turn and start to focus on some other issues besides COVID at this point. Mental health is one of those big issues that I pay attention to. What's the latest and the greatest?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. Not only is it just a local community problem where you see people on the street, obviously you can tell something is not right with them. It's overrun. You can't find physicians, but it's a national epidemic.
It is, yes.
And it's a taboo subject in our country where we don't talk about it. We don't discuss mental health. And whether that's low-level anxiety all the way to schizophrenia, bipolar, and you're off meds and it can only be controlled. I mean, so you have a lot of varying different things. And I've had experience and exposure with that level, but it's a very much needed service line in this country. Honestly, it's an epidemic problem. It is a growing problem where you have, again, whether it's a PTSD vet that's on the street or people off their meds are on the street, you see a lot of homelessness associated with that. They just don't have the stability and capability to function in a normal society and hold a job. But, we've got to do better as a community. We've got to do better as a medical profession, as a community.
Absolutely.
And discuss it openly.
Right.
With that. So.
And I think, too, the trend that I've noticed, so if you look at it from a position that I've been in, the trend that I've noticed is that with physicians not being paid well from insurances, this is not something that's well covered by insurance. For one, there's a lot of people who don't have insurance on top of that, so there's not a lot of places for them to go. But I noticed that there are a lot of psychiatrists now who are going more into hospital work or private pay, and so it's hard to get care for people. It is something that I've had to develop quite a good love for psychiatry and work with myself on my patients. I don't refer to psychiatry a lot because I can't get patients into psychiatry. And then if they don't have insurance, or if they're more at the government payer level with Medicaid or whatnot, it's virtually impossible. They have to go to the center, and it's really getting tough to find good care. So I'm having to burden a lot of that. There's only so many people I can see a day of it too, right?
I agree. And the other aspect that we didn't touch upon is opioid abuse, right? So a lot of those go hand in hand, and so as a physician, you've got to address both of them, right? You got to have the insurance has to address both of them, but it's a problem. I mean, I know patients have a 3-month waiting list just to see a physician, sometimes longer. And again, that's the medical group of patients you don't want not seeing a physician.
At its very
right?
base, yes.
I mean, again,
Yes.
mental health can be controlled in several ways, but one of the biggest one is medication.
Yeah.
And the way you get medication is through physician, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of things that impact it, but it's a tough subject.
It is.
And again, it's a taboo, right? Who wants to say I have a mental health problem?
Yeah. You think it would have
Who wants to
changed
say
over
that I
time,
have a
really?
family member that
Sure.
struggles with mental health,
Sure.
right? That's the taboo problem, is that we don't address it openly and help people. And so it's kind of a hush-hush thing, and we don't really address it. If you share it, it can impact your job, it can impact your income,
Absolutely.
right? So there's a lot of factors that go into mental health.
Right.
And
And
so-
as it develops, so with COVID, a new trend I see now is with the telehealth platform.
Yeah.
Is a lot of my patients now have, and this could be good, it could be bad, but a lot of my patients have opened up to a telemedicine front where they go to talk to somebody who they have never seen, as opposed to having me for their physician of 15 years, to get their medications for mental health and whatnot. And that is something that, like I said, could be good, could be bad. It could be an outlet for maybe a little bit something cheaper for them, but on the turn, patients can't afford their medications because they're so expensive. A lot of them don't go through their insurance, and for it, and there's a lot of medications that aren't accessible, and the cost of it. So there's just different branches now starting to take off of new problems. And
it is a complex system. Healthcare in general is a complex system, right? And as I was walking up to do this, I was thinking to myself, there's a couple things that I thought. Essentially, it doesn't matter what race you are, it doesn't matter any party affiliation, what part of the country, what sex you are, it does not matter.
Right.
Everybody in their life will experience healthcare.
Right.
That's how complex it is.
Right.
So everybody will touch it. And again, I've shared multiple times to show we have the best and the worst healthcare system in the world.
absolutely,
We
that's
do.
the only way to
But
describe it.
it's-
Best and the worst, right?
It's complex. I have almost 20 years experience. We just shared that. I have multiple degrees, and I still don't understand healthcare
Sure.
in America.
Right.
And so it's tough. So you imagine a patient who has a mental health problem, who's on and off drugs, who doesn't understand the system. How are they going to figure this, navigate it?
Right. And who doesn't understand the system? You're right. Again, like you, I've done this for 20 years. I still don't understand. And it's in constant evolution.
It is.
So with the constant changes, it's something I can't keep up with.
Yeah.
And so it is. It's become very difficult. I feel like, you mentioned trying to get into a physician, it being such a long time. There was a time over the COVID epidemic where I couldn't get a patient who was either having a heart attack, that was one I had, and another who was in DKA or diabetic ketoacidosis, very, very severe emergency, and I couldn't get them into the hospital because of the hospitals, being full or whatnot.
Yeah.
But now that, we had to put off having patients in for some of their surgeries and whatnot due to now the backlog is I can't get somebody in for a doctor for up to 6 months now. That was something, rheumatologists I tried to get a patient into, they're on a 6-month waiting list at this point. So the accessibility is tough.
It's tough, and then some of it we did to ourselves. Right. Mm-hmm. During COVID, you had people scared and didn't want to go see their physician. Mm-hmm. And so they waited and they waited. I know cases here in San Antonio of people waiting diabetes-wise and end up getting amputated limbs. Right. And so you have some of those dynamics going on. You have some group of population in our country and in our city that use the ER for their physician.
Absolutely.
Right. So there's some cost factors.
Sure.
There's some physician factors. There's the governor with his executive order stopped all elective surgeries during a period of high COVID cases in the hospital. So, there's a lot of complex issues that go along with, and then you add a national pandemic or international pandemic, and on top of that, it put a lot of hurt on our system.
Yeah, it sure did.
And in addition to the hospitals, right? When you put that and you have the need for taking care of patients that are sick, and you don't have elective surgery, you saw what it did financially to hospitals.
Absolutely.
It decimated our healthcare system. They had to be saved by the federal government.
Right.
So we have a lot of complex, high-level complex, and obviously very close personal issues. But there's a lot that needs to be fixed.
Absolutely.
And again, that's partly why I'm running for Congress, right? I shared earlier that in Congress, there's 435 members of Congress, only 15 on the Republican side that have any healthcare experience. That's like 4%.
Right.
But they deal with 20% of our GDP that's spent on healthcare.
Exactly.
And there's complex issues. That's why I'm talking to the American Medical Association and the Texas Medical Association. Because of that, we have to have people that have experienced it, dealt with it, go up to Congress to help write laws, to help physicians and patients navigate and make this regulatory burdensome less, so that we can facilitate our own needs.
Yeah, the regulatory burden is, has become an issue that I think with physicians, and we've talked about this before, so I hate to keep bringing it up again, but it's such a huge part of it for burnout.
Yeah.
Losing good physicians into, the system because there's just really overregulated. This overregulated, underpaid, and I don't know what industry doesn't feel that way. I think we all feel that way, no matter what industry
That's
we're in.
every industry who has government involved.
Exactly.
Because the free market doesn't do that, right? The
Right.
free market finds the easiest place to make the most money and the best thing for
Right.
the organization
Right.
and the customer. Healthcare doesn't. I mean, it's a tough subject too. You want some oversight to ensure physicians are practicing right, hospitals are practicing right,
Sure.
facilities. But at what point do you go over and you hurt what's
Right.
going on? You hurt
Absolutely.
innovation. You hurt physicians, causing burnout, right? I know physicians that are leaving, taking insurance patients, Medicare patients, because they're going cash base. Because they don't want to mess with the regulatory burden and trying to recoup and having to fight for the money, the service they've already provided. And just like any business, cash is king, and that's in healthcare too. It's a business.
Exactly right. Well, I am one of those that have considered doing that. I've considered moving on to, concierge style, practice or cash only. But, I feel I think at one point we tried to do that, and we approached about 400 different patients that had been with me for 15 years. None of them wanted to convert over, so we abandoned it because I can't see leaving these people I've been taking care of for 15 years. I just can't do it. But it puts me in a very bad position because then I am unable to, meet the demands of my family. I've got 2 kids that are going to be in college at the same time, and one that needs a car.
Well, so, and I hear, I'm heading towards that with my kids, but I'll share a personal story. My physician tried to do the same thing, but it was in addition increase in her, and I had to pay the copay, I had to pay the doctor. Oh, by the way, I had to pay an extra to the physician. So for me, I was like, that doesn't work for me. Now, where you see it is physicians do a monthly fee, and it doesn't matter how many times they call, it doesn't matter. So there's a little bit, I think, from a business standpoint.
Membership almost.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And so the problem is you can't put that burden onto the patient without an added service or a benefit to the patient, right? Because for me, it wasn't an added service, and I got nothing more out of it. And so I found a different physician.
Right, exactly. And I feared that that's what, was going to happen. I didn't want to, like I say, I didn't want to abandon these people who've been with me for so long. I know them so well, and I give them my best. But, survival is getting tougher. And I've never wanted to go into any, corporate, medical situation where I'm hired as an employee, because it really takes away not only a lot of my choices about my life, if I need to take a vacation or a day off or something, but it also would mean that I would have to follow their cookbook, all of their algorithms, and that would take a lot of freedom of practicing the art of medicine. That is something I have really, really argued lately, is that we are getting in too much of a recipe style, cookbook style algorithm, however you want to describe it, of practicing medicine. We've lost that art.
We have, and you're seeing, at some point there was a best practice scenario that went on, ACO started getting involved, and a bunch of other type scenarios. But it is, and unfortunately we're in the dying breed of private practice.
Absolutely. I'm still hanging on.
It's been dying for, and we have several big ones in San Antonio, but it is a dying. You join a group, or you join a medical practice, or you join a large organization to cover that burdensome cost. And it's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate, because we've lost that practice here in America.
Yeah. And that makes me really sad. I think about when I was a kid, I lived next door to my physician. We lived in a town of 1,500. I lived next door to my physician, and he was at all the baseball games, and, you go to his office, and it was just him and one person there answering the phone sometimes, for the most part. Still wrote on index cards for his medical records, and so it is.
But in other countries, so it's interesting you share that, because most of those primary care physicians in other countries put a huge emphasis on that. They call them GPs, general practice physicians, like Europe, right? Here in America, again, our emphasis is not on preventive primary care. It's more on catastrophic acute
Exactly.
level. And that's why a physician can come. Again, I've always prefaced, and I'll continue to say, I'm not a physician. I just have worked around and have hundreds of them that are friends. But you can be a primary care physician and make an X amount of dollars, or go to a few more years of school and make 3 times as much.
Right.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's what you see. So we have heavy
Right.
specialty and access to it. I can go to a neurosurgeon, to a cardiologist, cardiothoracic surgeon, to
Sure.
a vascular surgeon, and it's tougher to find a primary care.
Right. It makes no sense, right? It just makes
Well,
no sense. We tried to flip it.
People follow the money.
Right, they do. Well, and
I don't
it's
blame them.
and I don't blame him either. So I went to see a urologist not too long ago, and his fee for just the evaluation was $350, and I think that was with a professional courtesy on top.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody comes to see me, I'm $150, which I do that on purpose because the place I'm in, side of town, and all. But it is, you're right.
It's complex.
And
It's
things
complex.
scratching my head, thinking I either should have been a veterinarian or a dentist or a specialist of some
Yeah.
sort, or a plumber. So
Yeah.
just all the way around, I went into the wrong field somewhere. But I love what I do. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But it's getting
tough.
fairly tiring. So.
And you mentioned telehealth. I know we're running commercial soon, but you mentioned telehealth. It's interesting that was a tough industry for healthcare. It never took hold. We never bought into it. It wasn't paid.
Right.
So you as a physician did. You didn't get reimbursed.
Sure.
It wasn't till COVID that it found
changed.
its place in
Absolutely.
healthcare.
Absolutely.
Physicians were reimbursed. You saw a whole group of patients that had access to a physician. Again, it might not have been your established one,
Right.
but a patient that wasn't going to get out because of COVID, couldn't get out because of COVID, or
Absolutely.
didn't want to, now had access to a specialist to oversee.
Absolutely.
And it found its place. And,
It has,
I think it's here to stay. And
It is.
some regards, I like it. I think there's a value in it to physician and patients.
Absolutely, I agree, and it does have extreme value. The only problem is I can't lay hands on it, and somebody's talking to me
100%
about it, right? Talking to me about their
100%
ear, and I'm like,
Yeah.
is it infected? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'll just throw
No,
some antibiotics
it has
just
its
in case.
limits. It definitely has
right.
its limits.
Yeah, it does. There's so many that circle. We'll talk about that more. I think that we'll bring that up more after the break. Let me give you guys just a little bit of information. So you can find Kyle Sinclair at Kyle4, FOR, 20.com, but I'm also going to have information, already do have information at drpbetterlife.com, and that'll be links and whatnot where you can find Kyle. We're going to take a short break and come right back and finish up our conversation on medical care in the world these days, the U.S. We'll be right back.
Fatty liver is linked to 2 different situations, alcohol and diabetes or obesity. In both cases, patients can have no symptoms. In the United States, and in particular, Texas, the most common cause of liver disease in general is non-alcoholic fatty liver. Again, associated with overweight, obesity, and/or diabetes. Additional risk factors include high cholesterol, high blood pressure, Hispanic ethnicity, and postmenopausal status. At Pinnacle Clinical Research, we offer a quick, non-invasive ultrasound-based screening assessment called FibroScan. This test is done at no cost to you, and we do not take insurance. The test will measure the fat and stiffness in your liver and stage your risk and development of fatty liver disease. You will meet with a provider immediately following your scan to go over your results. If you're interested in getting more information on your liver health, please call 210-982-0320 and schedule your FibroScan today. We are conveniently located in the Medical Center at 5109 Medical Drive.
Welcome back. I am Dr. Mariane Pinkston, and we have been talking with Kyle Sinclair this morning about anything and everything we can medical as it relates back to all the problems that we have with politics as well. Since Kyle is running for Congress, I wanted to pin you down on a few items, and I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining me again.
Absolutely.
Make you a regular, I think, at some point, probably. Yeah.
Glad to be back.
Thank you for coming in. So I think we left off. We were talking a little bit about telemedicine. So. There's a lot of people who don't really understand. I mean, we have a population who still has a flip phone, so they have great difficulty with technology. And then we have the younger crowd who they do everything, on their phone or whatnot. And you were right when you said COVID, kind of came in and changed it up. We were really missing a diamond in the rough, I think, when with telemedicine, the COVID. Yeah. If anything good came out of COVID, it was that. We were able to change over.
I agree. Well, outside of that, I mean, it poked major holes in our healthcare system. And we as a country, we as a healthcare community need to fix our problems. And we definitely know it's very glaring. But yeah, telehealth is, I mean, as a hospital CEO, I use telehealth for physician coverage on certain levels that I can't get great coverage because there's limited or they don't have access or time to get into my hospital. So we personally use it, such as psych. Psych is one that there's very few of them. And so taking a physician out of their clinic to round on a hospital is a burden. But one physician can sit in their office and see 5 of my patients. Right?
Absolutely.
And we bring the device to the patient, right? So there's different varying levels. But yeah, again, I think it's found its place, and I'm glad that it's now reimbursed to the physician.
Right.
That financial burden is not carried by the physician or the practice. I think you should be compensated for your time. I mean, you guys are experts in your field and your years of experience and schooling and need to be compensated. So I'm glad that is finally
something
there.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time and taken literally an international pandemic to find its place, but definitely there, and hopefully it's here to stay. So
I hope it is too, and we'll work through all the kinks and the problems of it, because it's opened us up to almost international, but to a national basis. I know there are a lot of patients who live in other states who sometimes pick up information, some things that I specialize in, and want to see me from outside the state. And I find that very interesting that we can, expand, or a patient of mine who has moved out of the state who wants to visit. Now, well, that's what I was telling you earlier. I'm trying to figure out the laws on that, and I think we have a long way to go before we figure out how to accomplish that. But it is opening up a lot of doors, I think, that were closed previously.
Yeah, and I think the value is there. I think, again, as you start specializing, seeing such as yourself, physicians that specialize and are great at one thing, and I don't live or want to move or travel.
Right.
So, I'm seeing physicians set aside time now, right? Mm-hmm. Once a week, I do Monday from whatever their time is to see my telehealth patient population. So the patient population is increasing as the value sees it, and as physicians get more comfortable with it, and as the patient population get more comfortable with it.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Well, hopefully it will lead to a lot better care. I know lately, and where do you see us now? That, and then this may be a bigger topic than we can get into in the next few minutes as we begin to shut down. But where do you see now that COVID is, quote, over, unquote? Yeah. Hopefully it is. We haven't seen anything new coming this way. But where do you see us going as far as that?
As far as COVID or just healthcare
well,
in general?
I guess, COVID and healthcare in general. Now, like I say, now that it seems to have passed us, we have some leftover decisions to make about mask mandates and things like that, too.
We do. So. So what that did, and recently the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Biden administration continuing on, anybody who receives federal government that has to follow the federal regulations of the government. And what they want to do is mask mandates and vaccine mandates. So it's interesting. I'll share. I was talking with somebody about 3 or 4 weeks ago, a high-level member of President Trump's team who helped with Warp Speed and the vaccine mandate. And the question was proposed to me: Did it happen too fast? Did he push it too fast? And my response was, I don't think so. Somebody who was dealing with COVID and a scary, deadly disease, and we didn't know what it was, what caused it, how to stop in the very beginning, right? Anything such as a vaccine or something to help mitigate the symptoms of heading towards hospitalization or death, I was grateful for. And actually, I told this individual, I said, please, next time you talk to President Trump, tell him thank you from a healthcare professional in San Antonio. Again, I'm pro-vaccine. I think there's huge benefits. Again, I will always say I'm not pro a federal government mandating.
Yeah, no, pro-mandate.
And I think that goes back to my individual choice with you as my physician.
Sure.
What works best for me, and you as my physician has been with me for years.
Right.
It's not necessarily the federal government, the CDC, or World Health Organization. They don't look at the common good of an individual.
That's right. Yeah.
So they manage populations.
Absolutely. And that populations and trends, but when it comes to me and my patient in a room somewhere, that is between the two of us, and I agree with you entirely. I am very pro-vaccine as well, but also not pro-mandate whatsoever. I think we hopefully we're going to get back to being able to make some decisions for ourselves. I don't know.
Yeah, and here's what I told my team, because obviously the Supreme Court ruling, we had to mandate it, and what I told my team, and I very greatly think it's going to be, is every year anybody who works in a hospital setting is mandated to get a flu shot, unless you have a medical exemption, or you will be mandated to get a booster. And again, I share this, and I'll continue to share this, and I share with the individual with President Trump, is that we need to quit calling this a vaccine. It's not a vaccine.
It's not a vaccine. It doesn't eradicate it.
Exactly. It did not eradicate the disease. And so we're chasing variants of it. We're chasing, so it's a flu. And hopefully every year we're going to get the right flu strain, and we're going to get the right COVID variant.
Right, exactly. So, well, that is, I knew it was a wormhole for us to open up, a rabbit hole for us to get into, but I tell you, that is something I feel very strongly about, and it's still evolving.
It is.
I know we're a bit distracted at this point with the war and things like that going on, but we still have a lot of things that we need to fix. Well, glad you're working on it. Thank you.
And unfortunately, it's not a war yet for us.
No, it's not. Not for us, but for them. I meant we're dealing with, we're dealing with.
And I know a few seconds, but I mean, even war and millions of people have fled into Poland. That's a public health epidemic.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And being able to take care of the health needs of kids and families and people, of immigrants who are, going into another country now because of a war.
Right. And I cannot imagine what they're going through.
And even on our southern border.
Another one,
we have millions of people flooding into America, and how do we as a country take care of it when we have a broken system ourselves? Right?
Absolutely.
So,
big
it's
problem.
tough. There's a lot of things. That's where you need true leaders and people that will step up and try to do the right thing for the right reason.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you and working on that and everything you do at Warm Springs too. So you've done a lot of great things for 20 years. We appreciate it. So, well, I guess we're going to wrap it up again. So I'll give you guys the internet site one more time. drpbetterlife.com is where you can find all my information, but you can also find information on Mr. Sinclair here at Kyle, KYLEFOR20.com. Thank you guys very much. Have a great week.